politics has always been somewhat of a funhouse mirror. Everything slightly distorted, stretched, and grotesquely exaggerated, so much so it's hard to tell parody from policy. The villains call themselves patriots, the grifters call themselves Stephen Miller or strategists, and the people who should be laughed off of a street corner somehow end up shaping national discourse. Case in point, Steve Bannon, the man who made a career out of weaponizing ignorance, laundering hate through populism, and convincing a certain breed of white men that being angry is the same thing as being oppressed. Let's take a look.
And President Trump said it right there. Mamdani is the new face of the Democratic Party. Let him live with it. Marxist jihadist. And I don't know how this percentage of young Jewish kids or young Jewish people are voting for Mamdani in New York City. That shows me that the education system there ought to be shut down. President Trump, he has a whole lot of power when it comes to New York City. Don't think he's going to go along with this. If you vote for it, assume that your life's going to change, and we don't care if you hate Trump because it doesn't matter. We don't need New York. We won 3 times without New York. Yes, I said it. 2020 also. We won 3 times without New York, and Trump's going to win a 4th time without New York. So we love all the MAGA folks there, but New York City, Manhattan, hey, drop dead. You're about to elect a Marxist jihadist who hates America. We have no earthly idea who this guy is. He's been a citizen for 6 years. Have no idea where the money comes from. Qatar, the mom, the dad, shady characters. Of course, it's anti. They hate Americans. They hate American citizens. He's obviously very anti-white.
Okay, so Steve Bannon called Zoran a Marxist jihadist, which is a stunning political analysis from a man who looks like he sleeps in a dumpster behind Denny's and tumbled straight out of it. For those who don't know, Steve Bannon is a far-right political strategist who served as none other than Trump's chief strategist for 7 months before getting fired. He ran Breitbart News, which he once called the platform for the alt-right, and he said that out loud with pride. Like Trump, he's also a criminal. He's been arrested, and he's been arrested multiple times. Once for defrauding Trump supporters out of donations meant for a border wall, and he raised millions and kept it instead, and then got pardoned by Trump. Then he got arrested again for contempt of Congress when he refused to testify about January 6th. And he served 4 months in prison. He came out looking exactly the same, as you could see in his videos. And his political philosophy is essentially burn it all down and see what grows from the dumpstery ashes. He calls himself a Leninist and wants to destroy the state, but also very much rides for it. Super normal for a guy who worked in the White House and spent time in prison. And now he's on the show of his own, calling Zoran the leading New York City mayoral candidate, an actual progressive who's fighting for working people, a Marxist jihadist. Let's be clear about what Bannon's doing here. Jihadist is a racist dog whistle. The majority of modern Muslims believe that the concept of jihad has evolved beyond violence and is no longer a reference to holy war. But Bannon knows his audience is just about as cultured as white bread, and he knows that they do not care. So he's weaponizing classic Islamophobia against a progressive candidate because scaring people with words that they don't understand is much easier than actually explaining policy or stringing together a complete sentence. And Marxist jihadists, those are also ideologically incompatible. Marxism is material and secular. But again, accuracy was never the point. It's using big words that his audience is too dumb to understand. The fact that Bannon is this threatened by Mamdani tells you everything. They're terrified of actual progressives who might win and are on track to do so, so they throw out racist buzzwords and hope that it sticks. He also says Trump won 3 times without New York and will win a 4th time without New York. 3 times. So he's counting losses as wins now, and that feels very on brand for a man who's been banned from multiple platforms, fired from multiple jobs, and arrested multiple times, but still considers himself a genius. This is who's shaping conservative strategy. A man who fundraised off of a fake border wall, pocketed the money, got pardoned, went to prison anyway for a totally different crime, and still has a platform to use to racist dog whistle against progressive candidates on the internet. White men just tumbling forward, even the ones in prison jumpsuits, and also the ones with Nazi tattoos. So let's take a look at the latest and greatest out of Maine. A white man with a problematic past being celebrated as a hero of progressive values and rising the ranks in politics. You don't say. Just another day, another Graham Plattner apology video. America's the least anticipated sequel series. Let's take a look at the first apology.
Hey all, it's Graham here. As you've probably seen, there's a story that's broken about comments I made on Reddit in an earlier part of my life. As I read through them, I read things that I absolutely do not agree with. I read through and I see things that, words and statements that I abhor. I also see the trajectory of my life. When I got back from Afghanistan in 2011, I stayed in the Army for another year. I got out in 2012. Some of the worst comments I made, the things that I think are least defensible, that I wouldn't even try to defend.
So Graham Plattner is running for Senate in Maine. He's a veteran. He's an oyster farmer. He's a progressive darling. Bernie Sanders, my Uncle Bernie, is backing him. He's got the whole man of the people thing down. He calls for campaign finance reform, ending pointless wars, strengthening unions, like very noble, very on brand for a guy who wants to take down Susan Collins. But then Reddit posts come out. Over a dozen years worth of Reddit posts, calling people slurs, minimizing military sexual assault, telling rape victims that they shouldn't have gotten so fucked up that they wind up having sex with somebody they don't mean to. That's a direct quote, by the way. I'm not paraphrasing. That's what he typed. And also, he's got a Nazi tattoo on his chest, the death's head symbol. SS troops wore it, but don't worry, he got it drunk in Croatia in 2007 and allegedly had no idea what it meant. Sure, let's take a look. Let's cut to the clip.
Hey everyone, Graham Plattner here. I want to talk to you about something. In 2007, when I was a young infantry sergeant in the Marine Corps, myself and some machine gunners I served in Fallujah and Ramadi with were on our third deployment. We were in a naval vessel and we pulled in for a Liberty port in Split, Croatia. We went ashore to do the thing that young Marines do, which tends to be carousing and sometimes getting tattoos.
A guy who is very politically aware, but somehow didn't know some basic World War II iconography. And when confronted, he called it Totenkopf to somebody at a bar in 2012. I don't know that name by name, so that will tell you so much about how likely I would be to have that. But white men in progressive spaces, they learn the language faster than they learn the actual lesson. They'll say ACAB, and look, we agree here, cops are bad. But then they'll excuse their own violence, their own misogyny, their own Nazi tattoos, and they'll dismiss it as PTSD or a bad night. Not who they really are. They weaponize feminism when it's convenient. They invoke it to attack other men. But the second that they're held accountable, suddenly it's trauma. Suddenly it's context. Suddenly we're supposed to separate the art from the artist, or in this case, the Senate candidate from the Nazi skull and problematic Reddit posts. You know what really gets me? Everyone thinks PTSD is this thing that mostly affects men. Veterans coming back from war, right? Like that's what we imagine when we hear PTSD. That's the image we have in our head, the struggling male soldier. That's because that's where the majority of research, funding, and advocacy goes. But here's what most people don't actually know, and what they probably should know. Women experience PTSD at roughly twice the rate of men. The numbers don't lie. 10 to 12% of women will develop PTSD at some point in their lives, compared to 5 to 6% of men. Women are twice as likely. Let that sink in. And why? Well, because women are disproportionately exposed to the kinds of trauma that cause post-traumatic stress disorder, sexual assault, domestic violence, intimate partner abuse. And here's the part that really upsets me. So much of the trauma, it's inflicted by men. So when some guy uses his PTSD, uses his military service as a free pass to excuse years of degrading, problematic comments about women, about Black folks, about sexual assault victims, about entire groups of people, I see red. Because he's invoking a condition that women suffer from more, often because of the violence from men like him, to absolve himself of accountability. PTSD is real. I know it personally, and I know PTSD deeply, but it doesn't make you ask why Black people don't tip. It doesn't make you blame rape victims. Those are choices. That's who you are. And we need to stop letting people hide behind excuses that it's trauma that they may have experienced while ignoring the trauma that they're perpetuating. Uncle Bernie is unfortunately standing by him. He says Plattner went through some really difficult experiences overseas. Two things can be true at once. And as if being deployed gives you a free pass to tell sexual assault survivors that it's their fault. As if trauma justifies a decade of cruelty online and a chest tattoo that you definitely probably knew the meaning of. This is why I don't trust white men who talk like progressives and listen, I love white men too, but when the mask starts to slip on these guys and they don't apologize, they explain, they contextualize, they ask for grace that they've never extended to anyone else, we see what's going on. Plattner's campaign says he's staying in the race, says he has Mainers behind him, and maybe he does. Maybe he'll win. Maybe Bernie's endorsement will carry him all the way through. But let's be clear, this isn't about one bad tattoo or some old Reddit posts. It's about a man who spent years saying vile things, marked his body with a Nazi symbol, and is now asking us to believe that it was all just a misunderstanding. White men tumble forward. They always do. The rest of us just have to watch. This is the cycle. The Bannon news types spew hate until it trickles down into the progressive spaces that they swear that they're better than. The Plattners of the world rebrand, reemerge. They get second chances galore, second chances that no one else would. And through it all, the same people, women, Black people, people of color, Muslims, progressives who actually mean it, who pay the price for everyone else's redemption arc. Because in America, power doesn't disappear when it gets exposed. It just gets put on the back burner. It gets new clothes, finds a new platform, and continues to tumble forward. White men always do. The rest of us were left picking up the pieces. And if you've enjoyed this story, please take a moment to subscribe. We believe victims. We believe women. We also believe trauma, but it's not an excuse to be an asshole.